Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into First Reaction TV. My name is J Mart. Today we're going to be checking out an interview with Vivek Ramaswamy, and he goes on Meet the Press, and they talk about a whole bunch of different things. The cancel culture in America, wokeism, transgender issues, abortion issues. So they cover a lot of different things. I appreciate you watching. Please make sure you hit that like button, comment, and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Thanks for watching, guys.
Welcome back. As America debates how old is too old to be president, the youngest candidate that's announced in the 2024 field is currently introducing himself to voters. Vivek Ramaswamy is a 37-year-old multimillionaire who graduated from Harvard College and Yale Law School. He made his fortune at a hedge fund and in biotech, and he ran an asset management company which calls itself anti-woke. A first-time candidate for political office, he says he has plans to start an anti-woke cultural movement.
We're in the middle of a national identity crisis. That leaves a vacuum in its wake. And when you have a vacuum that runs that deep, that is when poison fills the void. Pick your favorite one. Wokeism, transgenderism, climatism, globalism, COVIDism.
And Vivek Ramaswamy joins me now. Mr. Ramaswamy, welcome back. Actually, welcome to Sunday Meet the Press.
Thank you. Good to see you again, Chuck.
Let me start with this overall look. You've got this anti-wokeism. You've written books about this. This is your political identity as you've introduced yourself to folks. I get it in a primary. Why are you convinced this message could actually work if you got the nomination in a general election?
I think I'm speaking as a member of my generation here, Chuck, but I think it's true of all Americans. We're all hungry for a cause right now in America. We're hungry for purpose and meaning. At a point when the things that used to fill our hunger for purpose, faith, patriotism, family, hard work, these things have disappeared. So I see an opportunity to revive our missing national identity. I think that's something that Americans hunger for across the political spectrum, answering what it means to be an American today. You ask people my age that question, you get a blank stare in response. I think that is the vacuum at the heart of our national soul. I'm running for president to revive the ideals that actually set the nation into motion. I think it's going to unite the country.
You know, it's interesting.
Vivek's take here is that, you know, the United States has nothing right now. Nothing. That we don't have a single issue in this country right now that brings us together. That not even being a patriot brings us together anymore. That, you know, love for your country isn't even a coming together thing anymore. That there's been so much, even on the left right now, where it is being pushed to, you know, hate your country and that it's racist and that it was built by slaves and we're evil and all white people. I mean, like, there's just so much rhetoric out there that there is not a single thing in this country that actually bring people together. And it's like, it's a shame. Like, it really is a shame. And I think it's a great point. I still just don't know how you do that. You know, the people that are unpatriotic, they're still going to be unpatriotic. But I understand what Vivek's saying here, and I think it is a good cause.
Your rhetoric can sound uniting, and your answer just now. But then you say the following things. The trans movement has become a cult. We need to abandon climate religion in America. I definitely find the idea of systemic racism revolting. I say this, how do you square those statements with unification? These are divisive times. This is a polarizing time. We're pretty evenly divided on these cultural issues. How do you unite the country when you're essentially denigrating the views of half the country?
He's not specifically attacking one person or half the country as, you know, someone that would go out there and say MAGA Republicans are evil. Like, that's kind of attacking half the country. It's once again, it's ideals. It's not a one size fits all, you know, everybody's evil on the left. That's not what Vivek is saying at all.
I don't think I'm denigrating the views of half the country. I mean, let's take the touchiest of those subjects right now on the trans issue. I think that when a kid says that I'm born into the wrong body, that my gender doesn't match my biological sex, more often than not, that is a case of a mental health disorder. That doesn't mean you disrespect that person. It means they're crying out for help. I met with two young women who regret the decisions they made, going through double mastectomies, one a hysterectomy, chemical intervention, now trying to teach kids across the country that when you're struggling inside, going through adolescence, yes, that involves some struggle. We live in a cultural moment today where adults are affirming that confusion rather than actually treating them compassionately. That's cruelty.
You ever talk to parents that have a kid who's going through this?
I have, actually. Yeah, and
I mean, it's a parent. My point is,
it's a difficult place to be. I acknowledge that. But what we need to do on both sides here is act with compassion, not really what makes us feel good about ourselves. And I think that's my main issue across our response to transgenderism and to climate. It's solving the actual underlying issues rather than what allows you to signal your virtue.
What makes it compassionate, though, to pass a law that denies a parent making their own health care decision for their kid? That's the part of this. That doesn't sound very conservative and small government to me.
Well, look, there isn't a state in this union that allows you to smoke an addictive cigarette before the age of 18, that allows you to get a tattoo before the age of 18. That's a body-altering change that a kid may later regret in life. So I think it is perfectly reasonable to say that if you're after 18 years old, you're free to decide whatever you want to do. That's what it means to live in a free country. But below the age of 18, I think it's perfectly legitimate to say that we won't allow genital mutilation or chemical castration through puberty blockers
you're
for the purpose of gender transition.
But how do you know it's that? Again, how do you know, are you confident that you know that gender is as binary as you're describing it? Are you confident that it isn't a spectrum?
I am.
You know this as a scientist?
Well, there's two X chromosomes if you're a woman, an X and a Y. That means you're a man. So there's a biological basis for this.
There's a lot of scientific research out there that says gender is a spectrum.
Chuck, I respectfully disagree. Gender dysphoria for most of our history, all the way through the DSM-5, has been characterized as a mental health disorder, and I don't think it's compassionate to affirm that. I think that's cruelty. When a kid is crying out for help, what they're asking for is, you got to ask the question of what else is going wrong at home? What else is going wrong at school? Let's be compassionate and get to the heart of that, rather than playing this game as though we're actually changing our medical understanding for the last 100 years.
I go back to this. If a parent is dealing with a child that has these, that may have these issues, trust me, the last thing they want to do is consider something like this. But if that is what they think could help their child pursue happiness, or they're not to kill themselves, why take away that option? Again, why shouldn't it be up to the parent?
So part of why parents now suddenly feel that way, let's ask ourselves that, Chuck, is we've created a culture that teaches parents that they're being bigoted or that they're bad people if they don't actually take those steps. So part of what I think is, listen, gender dysphoria, for the rare few people who have suffered it, is a condition of suffering. My question is, why on earth are we going out of our way to create even more of it? And there's no doubt that the cultural movement in this country, even education, is creating more gender dysphoria. If it's a condition of suffering, let's not create more of it. That's what we're doing.
Let me ask you about the Disney dust-up with Ron DeSantis.
You can't do anything else in this country that's life-changing or life-altering as a child. Like, you just can't. No tattoos, no surgeries, plastic surgery on your face, you know, like, you can't do anything crazy, can't smoke, can't drink, can't join the army. You know, you can't join the army as a 6-year-old. And not only that, Vivek brings it up too, like, this is being pushed in society, no matter what anybody says. Oh, kids aren't being indoctrinated, kids aren't, like, it is popping up story by story by story across this country right now, where there's school after school after school that's either getting in trouble, school board meetings where parents find out something that they had no clue was going on in their schools. You know, a lot of this is even coming from the top down. I mean, you have the government pushing, and I mean pushing, this DEI stuff, and everything that's federally involved are now getting memos of inclusion and gender-based this and equity. The schools are going to implement it. Like, even if they're not trying that hard, the school gets a memo, now all the teachers get a memo, and now all the teachers, well, there aren't really boys and girls anymore, and that's how it happens. Like, it's literally happening right now.
On one hand, I assume you agree with pushing back at Disney the way Governor DeSantis has rhetorically. But is there a point where you think it is too much to use government to punish business?
Here's where Ron DeSantis really lost it here. He's gone on the wrong path. He claimed, and this part actually sounded good to me, Disney should have never had crony capitalist lobbying-related privileges in the first place. Here's the part he doesn't mention. One of those crony capitalist privileges was, and I think the most relevant one, was codified into law by none other than Ron DeSantis in 2021. So Florida passed this political anti-discrimination statute, which I applauded at the time, said if you operate internet companies, this includes streaming services like Disney does, that you can't engage in viewpoint discrimination. Now, here's the funny, dirty little secret of that. they wrote into a last-minute exception into that law for anyone who also operates a theme park more than 25 acres in the state of Florida. That's crony capitalism. And so the irony is Ron Desantis, who's now railing against crony capitalism and rolling that back, was the one who actually passed that into law for the case of Disney. So I think that undermines the credibility of his crusade. I prefer to get to root causes rather than doing political stunts.
Let me ask you about the idea of cancel culture, because I feel like the criticism that the right was making of the left 2 years ago, that it looks like some on the right are embracing cancel culture. I think Bud Light. I think about the transgender representative in Montana who was basically kicked, not allowed to speak on the floor. Do you think some of this is going too far?
The right is not embracing cancel culture. Conservatives are sick of it. And they're sick of being talked down to. And they're sick of being belittled, even whenever they have supported a product their entire life, like Bud Light. And the stuff with the trans representative in Montana, it was the same thing with the Tennessee Three. They broke the rules. This isn't like sending out a tweet or a mean tweet or a wrong tweet. That's not that's what cancel culture would be. You say something or slipped up, said something you shouldn't have. These people shut down their state capitals. They shut down their state capitals by breaking rules. And then they got voted out. That's not cancel culture. That's being held accountable for your actions. And there is a difference here.
So look, I'm an opponent of victimhood culture, cancel culture, you name it. I've written a book about this. I do think that the way the culture war ends is not with a bang, but with a whimper, where both sides get infected by those same norms.
You think the right's been infected by this?
One of the things I say to conservative audiences across the country is we have to be the party of free speech and open debate. We can't be the party that says, I won't talk to... I'm here talking to you on NBC. There's other candidates in this race that say they won't talk to NBC News. Ron DeSantis is one of them. But I go to college campuses where other candidates refuse to go. So I think we've got to practice what we preach. I'm in this race as a millennial, as a young person who's lived the American dream, to actually walk the walk when it comes to free speech and open debate. And yes, I would like to see other Republicans rise to that occasion and do better, starting with the debate stage in our own party this fall.
If Donald Trump doesn't do debate.
I mean, look, I agree with that. I mean, like, dude, free speech is still free speech. I mean, that's like 100%. But the irony of this is, like, that's actually what's going on. The entire Bud Light situation was everyone's right to speak out what they thought and what their opinions were, and they're valid opinions, and that's their right to have these opinions. That's not cancel culture. That's literally the definition of capitalism, that Bud Light had free speech. They said something that pissed a lot of people off. Those people chose and decided that they're no longer buying a product. That's free speech. That's capitalism. That's their right as Americans. The stuff with the state legislatures, once again, you don't have free speech once you're in a government process and you have to follow the rules of decorum. That's not free speech. Going in there with a bunch of signs and chanting and yelling and shutting down a government, process is, that's fascism. That's authoritarianism. Not letting the other party speak. Like, that's what that is, okay? So there's a big difference here between how both those scenarios played out.
Will you not support him if he's the nominee?
Well, I'm not going to let him get away with that. Donald Trump...
What does that mean? What do you mean you're not going to let him get away with it? He can do what he wants to do. I
don't think the other candidates, including Donald Trump, are going to relish being on that debate stage with me. But I think that the way that he's shown in 2015, what people gave him credit for was that he was an outsider and a disruptor. I'm the outsider in this race. And I think that if you want to be part of, like Joe Biden, an existing establishment that doesn't want to debate, I think people are hungry for new blood.
What should the party use as leverage to force him to show up on the debate stage?
I think it's the voters. I think it's my job and it's the job of candidates to tell voters that if you want someone sitting across the table from Xi Jinping, if you want someone with the spine to take on the administrative state, it's the top of my domestic agenda, you better darn well not be scared to show up on a debate stage with the new challenger. Donald Trump did a great job of that in 2015. I'm the outsider in this race.
You have indicated you would support a 6-week abortion ban if you were a governor of a state and all this. What would you do on a federal level? Would you create a floor?
So I believe in being principled on this, Chuck. I'm unapologetically conservative state. It's the top of my domestic agenda. You better darn well not be scared to show up on a debate stage with the new challenger. Donald Trump did a great job of that in 2015. Yeah. I'm the outsider in this race.
You have indicated you would...
Look, I think that's a great point. Like, I actually hate this stuff. I hate what we heard last week about how Joe Biden isn't going to debate anybody and that there's not going to be a primary and that the entire Democrat Party has already decided that there's no challengers. You're not allowed to challenge us and you're not allowed to debate us. If you're a conservative out there and you like Donald Trump or you like DeSantis, regardless who you like, you still want to find the best person available. I mean, this is America. You never know who might surprise you. And someone like Vivek is smart. He's very quick on his feet. He's intelligent as hell. And even though Trump is a bully and he pushes people around on that stage, Vivek could possibly give him a run for his money. And it's something, look, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see, Trump and Vivek and, whoever else on the stage.
Stage with the new challenger. Donald Trump did a great job of that in 2015. Yeah. I'm the outsider in this race.
You have indicated you would support a 6-week abortion ban if you were a governor of a state and all this. What would you do on a federal level?
I'm the outsider in this race.
You have indicated you would support a 6-week abortion ban if you were a governor of a state and all this. What would you do on a federal level? Would you create a floor?
So I believe in being principled on this, Chuck. I'm unapologetically pro-life. And like many in the pro-life movement, I believe that abortion is a form of murder. Murder, though, is regulated by the states, not by the federal government. I believe in the Constitution. I think Roe was wrongly decided. I've said so for a long time. This is a matter for the states, not the federal government, and I stand on principle there.
When does a fetus have constitutional rights?
So look, 6 weeks is at the end of life when you lose brain waves. That's our moment of death.
Where in the Constitution does it say someone has constitutional rights as a fetus?
It's not codified in the Constitution. That's why this is a matter for the states. But I do believe that I'm unapologetically pro-life, but one of the areas where we can do better in the pro-life movement is to walk the walk. Provide an easier option for women to get to yes. I support a conversation about adoption, childcare, even greater responsibility for men. I think that's how we turn this issue into being a less divisive one.
One of your big applause lines that is a bit of a head scratcher for me is defund the FBI.
Yeah. So if I didn't say defund the FBI. I said shut down the FBI and replace it with something new. Yeah.
So you want to shut down the FBI? What are you replacing it with?
I think it's a new apparatus built from scratch that actually respects the law instead of making it up. And the funny thing, Chuck, is if you look at over the last...
I think the FBI constantly is making up the law. That is a huge charge. They just stopped major fentanyl, been able to get rid of... I mean, there's a lot of work the FBI does other than respond to complaints from elected officials who don't like investigations.
Well, actually, if you look over the course of the last 60 years, J. Edgar Hoover, what he did to Martin Luther King, that was an affront. It's still the J. Edgar Hoover FBI that people walk into down the street here in Washington, D.C. And I personally believe, as somebody who's running to actually run the executive branch of the government, when you have a bureaucracy whose culture becomes so ossified, every once in a while you need to turn it over. And I think that, yes, we need federal law enforcement, but that institution has, in a bipartisan way, become so, I think, ossified in its own norms, in its own corruption, that we need to rebuild it from scratch and have something.
So you're going to replace the FBI with a new FBI?
Well, with a new institution built from scratch to carry out federal law enforcement, because the existing FBI, the people who work there, have worked there for so long that actually they're going to be getting in their own way. I think that that's actually important. And by the way, I also support...
It does sound like you're just replacing the FBI with the FBI.
Well, the problem is there's people who have worked there for decades. And so what I say is if I'm the U.S. president and I can't work for the federal government for more than 8 years, which I think is a good thing, then none of those bureaucrats reporting into me should either. That's the point I'm making.
All right. Vivek Ramaswamy, you bring some energy to your campaign. We'll be following it. Thanks for coming on and sharing your views with us.
It's good seeing you, Chuck. Thank you.
I think Vivek has a lot of key points here between America's identity, what brings us together, what's pushing us apart, and a lot of these hot button issues that I don't think he's as divisive as some of the other candidates are. I think Vivek's wrote a book, or he wrote a book in years previously, and I think it was about cancel culture or wokeism, and he's very on top of like this DEI stuff that's being pushed in our country right now. And whenever people were worried about, this indoctrination of schools and indoctrination of children, workplace you know, racial stuff. A lot of this stuff is coming from the government down, and it's being pushed by the whole DEI, equity, and inclusion stuff that's coming down from our government. So when people say, show me one place where kids are being indoctrinated, show me where this is happening, it's why every single college campus in this country has the same belief systems. You tell me how that happens. Tell me how that is even possible, that an entire country has nothing but the same identities at every single college institution across the entire country from sea to sea. This stuff is coming from the top down, and it trickles down even more then, because those college kids then become school teachers, okay? And now guess what? Now they're teaching all your kids, now they're running elementary schools, and it's how it happens. So this stuff has been being pushed for a long time, and I think Vivek does a great job on calling it out. And look, man, I think that stuff's like an epidemic. I don't think people truly understand how bad it actually is. And I think Elon Musk actually touched on that this week when he was on an interview on Bill Maher's show. He said the same things, and he kind of had the same outlook on it that I did, that people complain about this and people were outraged about it. But even those people, I don't think anybody has any clue how bad this situation actually is. The indoctrination of all of these systems and universities and schools has been going on, and it's been going on for a lot longer than people even knew about. I think Vivek could do a great job if he's given the chance. The problem is, I don't know if he's going to be given the chance. But hey, let me know what you guys think about Vivek Ramaswamy. I appreciate you watching this video. Like, comment, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. And I appreciate all you guys watching. Thanks a lot.